This video isn't scripted. I'm just going to talk off the dome. I haven't done one of these videos in a while, and I'm in the process of moving. This is just on my mind, so I'm just going to be like rambling at this point. All my lights are packed up. Most of my equipments are packed up, so the quality is just going to be regular phone quality. You could tell that I'm just spitballing this because I'm looking everywhere, trying to figure out where my next train of thought is. But one of the things that I was thinking about while I was packing up was just introverted sensing in itself. Me personally, I move a lot. When I was younger, my parents didn't have a house, so I would move every year to a different place, but maintain the same area so I could go to the same school. Then I joined the military, where I moved about every year or two, depending on where I was stationed. And then I moved to the East Coast. And then when I was on the East Coast, I moved states every year, and now moving back to the West Coast. Being in different environments, being in different places has always been very natural to me. One of the things that I realize, me personally, is that I think it is scary to be in one place for too long. And when I say be in one place and too long, I don't mean just physically. I mean, even though there's a physical aspect to it, not like just the sensory. I'm just talking about just being the same person for too long. I think the easiest way to explain this is to kind of just use an example from my past life. When I was in college, I was a little older, but I lived on campus, and there was this park in Seattle called Gasworks Park. And if you live on campus or you're from Seattle, you know that it's like a 1.5 mile jog in order to get there. And there's like this bike trail that I used to jog a lot to kind of go there and back. And that place has kind of been my go-to place whenever I was going through things. It's a park that overlooks the lake, and then on the opposite side of the lake, you see a gorgeous view of downtown Seattle. And I used to go at night whenever I was going through things. When I visit Seattle, which I consider my home because I spent most of my life there, when I go back to Seattle, regardless of how many days I'm there, whether it's for a few days for work or whether it's for family or friends where I'm there for a week or so, there is something in the back of my head that keeps telling me, John, you need to go back to Gasworks. Even though it's out of the way, even though it might be an hour drive, if not longer, depending on where I am, because a lot of my friends and family live in not just Seattle proper, but everywhere around that area. And I would be upset if I left town and I didn't go there. And it never really made sense to me. And just knowing Myers-Briggs and knowing cognitive functions, I've been trying to attribute that to a function. Is that introverted feeling? Like, do I have an attachment to that place so I keep going back to it? But I don't think so, because introverted feeling for me doesn't feel how I feel whenever I don't visit Gasworks Park. And it's not extrovert thinking, obviously, because it's out of the way. It's not NI, because NI doesn't focus on that. And it's not SE, because SE just doesn't really care what we do as long as we're out doing things. So it's a function that I'm not used to. And I have arrived at a conclusion that it's introverted sensing, that there is a level of comfort that I automatically get anytime I go back to that park, because that park has consistently been a place where I felt not necessarily alive, but I felt so much emotions when I was there. That's how I feel whenever I think about extroverted sensing. People think about extroverted sensing, they think about the applicable side of it, where it's taking something that's known throughout history, humanity, or something that's already learned, and then applying it to whatever in life. But then there's the human aspect of introverted sensing. And that human aspect of introverted sensing is something that I witness a lot firsthand. And I witness it because I don't really think that way. I said this in my previous videos about ISFJs and ISTJs. I think they are by far the prettiest people out there, and it's probably because they do something that I don't do. My NI sees their SI, and I'm like, wow, that is new. It's new to me, even though it's not necessarily new to them. There's a beauty and comfort knowing that's what's popular. That's what's known. But it's also terrifying. Terrifying as in, if I follow these steps to look the way that the status quo look, then I'm going to be like everyone else. And being like everyone else, first, that goes against introverted feeling. I'm a unique person. I will look and dress however I want because that will be me. And the second part of that is introverted intuition. It's kind of understanding that the moment I put myself in any introverted sensing place, that there are standards that are applied that doesn't really follow what I care about. I was rambling on for a few minutes and it didn't make sense. So let's kind of narrow this down. A lot of the things that I do doesn't make sense, and I'm aware of that. And what I mean by making sense is, why am I seeking things that I already have? One of the things that I've been told a lot, especially from you guys commenting, is that I have a good group of friends. I have a huge group of friends and family that love and care about me. But for some reason, I keep trying to get away from them. And I don't really understand that. I've spent most of my life, and this question keeps repeating in my head. Am I running away from something, or am I running towards something? And this is where introverted sensing comes in. So whenever I talk to my SI Dom friends or family members, they would recall the past as if it was this beautiful place that they can relive because they actually enjoyed it. But that's the exact opposite of my experience when I think about the past. And I don't know whether this is an INTJ thing or an NI thing, so please keep me honest. And if it's a me thing, then it's a me thing. But when I think about the past, it's mostly negative. It's mostly the person who I used to be that I wasn't proud of, that I spent time evolving from that person. So when I think about the past, it's negative and I don't want to think about it. Whereas introverted sensing DOMs, when I think about the past, there's this romanticized version of it, rose-tinted glasses, which doesn't make sense to me. But then I think about the opposite end, introverted intuition. And that's how I feel about the future. The future, even though it's unknown, it is painted in a very beautiful light. Even though there are so many negative things happening along the way, I can't help but romanticize what could be. I've said this in a bunch of my videos. I think introverted intuition, people hate it when I say this, but this is the easiest way that most people understand. Introverted intuition is my imagination until it actually happens. It's extroverted sensing, collect all this information, all this data, and I thinks this is going to happen. And until it actually happens, it really is just my imagination. But that imagination in itself is one of the most beautiful place to be. I can't help but want to just imagine what things can look like, what things can feel like, how tangible certain achievements can be. And then there are moments where I experience introverted sensing. And introverted sensing, as with all cognitive functions, there's a human aspect to it. There's a way that it affects you in your life. And then there's a practical term. And then there's a bunch of different nuances to it. I experience introverted sensing the most whenever I engage with people that use introverted sensing or have it in their first 4 function stack. For example, when I used to hang out with my ESFJ friend who has introverted sensing second in his function stack, he would always offer me all these candies, all these treats and things to eat whenever we're hanging out. And I remember thinking to myself, bro, why do you have all these treats? But at the exact same time, I'm like, yeah, I want to eat those treats. Those are amazing. You have chocolate? I love chocolate. And I noticed this with my INTP friend. My INTP friend used to eat a lot more than I did. Before I knew MBTI, I knew that he and I were very similar, but I didn't realize how different we were at the same time. So he would make sure that he would eat a lot. And I'm talking about like steak or deep fried stuff, whatever that was part of his TINE thing. There was a moment where he was huge into air frying. There was a moment where he was huge into like eating only red meat because he was working out and all that stuff. It all came down to introverted sensing. And it came down to introverted sensing because it was something that I constantly ignore. There are lots of times where it doesn't even cross my mind, but then there are even more or just as many times where I just completely ignore it. Sometimes I know I should eat, but I don't eat. There are a lot of times where I know I should call someone, but I don't. There are a lot of times where I know that I'm cold and I should put on another layer of clothing, but for some reason, I'm like, nah, I'll just struggle through it. Introverted sensing is very interesting to me because that's a function where I wish I had. There's a level of comfort that comes with introverted sensing that me as an NI Dom, I will never truly master unless I live to like 200-300 or something. And I see it so often with the people around me. I've said this before in my ISFJ video. One of my friends, she's an ISFJ and she's a SI Dom. She used to cook for me and then deliver it to my place. Number one is because she usually makes extra. And number two, because she just likes feeding me. How interesting would life be if I knew I was hungry and I would cook immediately and then feed myself? You know, how interesting would it be if I went to sleep and there's a level of comfort that I strive for? Not just, okay, hey, I am going to sleep, this is comfortable enough, but the opposite. It's, I want to be as comfortable as I can be. I went to my INTP friend's house and I was like, I'll just sleep on the couch. And she was like, no. She actually yelled at me. She was like, no, you're sleeping on this blow up bed because it's more comfy. And I was like, damn, okay, I'll sleep there. I think I'm quick in a lot of things, especially when it comes out mentally. But introverted sensing is quicker. Like, introverted sensing eludes me. It does this thing where if I try to engage with introverted sensing, I'm actually engaging another function that I think is introverted sensing, which I want to be absolutely clear that every person uses every function. As a human being, you're very complex and you engage with every single function throughout your life. But mastery of introverted sensing, I don't really have that. It really is odd to look back at all these pictures and relive all these experiences that I had with all these people in my life, and acknowledging that my life actually happened and these people were actually a part of it. It is what, cognitive dissonance? It feels really weird. And I've said this in my previous videos before I even knew about Myers-Briggs, before I even knew I was an NIDOM, I used to tell my friends all the time, I do things because I feel like I don't have a life. How beautiful would the world actually be if I was able to engage with it the same way a sensor engages with it, or a high sensor, introverted sensing or extroverted sensing? When I look at all these pictures, it makes me realize that there is a life outside of my mind that I have lived to get to where I am right now. But it still doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like that person was me. And I remember talking to an ISTJ, and she told me that when she relives those moments, she can relive the moment as if she went back in time and then went in her own body and then lived through that. That doesn't happen to me, or it doesn't happen very often. Even when it comes down to traumatic moments where I'm not going to get into, but I am me as an adult right now, looking at childhood me, wishing that I had the strength to change whatever that moment was. I know the grass always seems greener on the other side, and that's what this video is about, me throwing flowers on the other side for SI DOMs or high SI users. It really sounds like a beautiful place to be able to live life and then experience life again. Isn't that such an interesting concept, that as a SI user or SI DOM, when you live through something and then you can relive it? I guess it's similar to how NIDOMs, how we can live through something that actually never happens. But then there's the other side of it. How nice would it be to allow myself to treat myself really well? That if I really want to have the nicest things, then I'll have the nicest things, instead of trying to justify it through extrovert thinking, introvert feeling, or extrovert sensing. How nice would it be to be like, oh, that's trending, that's what I want to do. Or, oh, this is what will look good, so if I wear it, I know I'll look good. Oh, this has tasted good before, so I'll eat it again, because not because it's efficient, I already know how to cook it, but because I actually like the taste. That was a bad example, but I think you guys understand where I'm trying to get at. This all comes down to this. I have lived a life before that just doesn't feel real, and I don't really know if I can honestly say that I am the person that I was in all those pictures. The things that I'm terrified of is staying stagnant in me as a person, whether it has to do with my mental, or it has to do with sensory, or anything that has to do with just me. Anything that I have influence of, or anything that influences me, you know, there has to be some type of change. And then when I'm searching and then trying to become better, following my NI goal, I'm hoping that I like the person that I meet, or like the person that I become. One of the reasons why I haven't made a video about introvert sensing or any of the cognitive functions that are in the 5th or 8th stack for INTJs is because I'm not really sure how to describe them in a very human way. I understand how you could tell whether someone has it, but this is the part where this is, I guess, my marketer side coming out. There's two different sides of an experience. There's the technical side where you can read in books or learn from other people or hear it and then you could teach it as a professor or whatever. But then there's the culture side of it, the actual living it. I'm not really sure how it feels for introverted sensing to live their life, but I'm making a guess because when I look at old pictures, man, it feels so good to be like, John, you lived through that. I didn't start this video expecting me to arrive to any conclusions or for it to be too educational. The purpose of this video is just to make a video about introverted sensing and just to let you guys, the audience, know how captivated I am by this function. I see it in my life because it's so unclear to me, but afraid to speak about it because I don't understand the culture behind it. Introverted sensing is always going to be that function that I'm going to outsource. And I do it really well, especially being a younger sibling, younger cousin, and being a guy too. I could play dumb, be like, oh, I don't know how to do this. It is very interesting to me that people have introverted sensing and that it's something that they prioritize. And I'm thinking about that because I feel like it took me 36 years to finally allow myself to be comfortable. I am finally allowing myself that, hey, John, not every aspect of your life needs to be improved. Not everything needs to change. You are okay with things being the way they are in certain aspects of it. That is wild. Wild to me that it took me this long to actually allow myself to think this way. I mean, it was only in my early 30s where I allowed myself to start feeling, allowed myself to start engaging with introverted feeling and not TE out of it. I don't know where I'm getting at for the rest of this video, and honestly, I don't want it to be a long video. So for those of you who are watching this video and you guys feel like you guys want to comment on it, yeah, let me know, man. I don't really understand how to explain introverted sensing besides the fact that it's comfort. At least that's the way that I see it. That's the way that I experience it. That's the way that I have engaged with it throughout my life. And it's beautiful, terrifying, extremely terrifying. It's that cute lion that you want to pet, but you know will bite you if you engage with it too much or if you get too close to it. Let me and everyone else know what you think about introverted sensing, and those are my thoughts, quick thoughts. I didn't write it down. The last thing I want to say is a message to all you INTJs and a message to myself. It is okay to seek comfort. INTJs, sometimes you have to understand that not everything in life needs to change. Not everything in life needs to be approved. And it is okay for things to stay the way they are. Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Bye.